Hey guys, it's Kate, welcome back. Today's video is going to be something a little bit different. It's what happened when I tried to make my very own watercolour paints completely from scratch. I've been wanting to do this for such a long time. It was a super long process, but it turned out really well and I'm really excited to share the results with you. Also stick around because at the end of the video I'm going to be telling you how you can win some of my paints for yourself for free. So I'm going to be doing a giveaway, so make sure you stick around to find out how to enter that. Right, let's get straight down to it. First of all, let's go over the different ingredients and materials I'm going to be using to make this watercolour paint. First of all, some kind of binder which is made up of gum arabic solution. You can make your own from what I've seen from powdered gum arabic and distilled water. I just got the gum arabic solution, which is a little bit more expensive, but if you're only making a small amount, it actually works out cheaper anyway. The next thing that you need to put into your binder is honey and glycerin. These products are to help the paint come together a little bit more smoothly. Then I also got this little bottle of clove oil. That is just added as a preservative, so that's what you need for the binder. Obviously you need some colour to go along with it, so for that you need pigment powders. I got these little pouches of 10 grams of pigment from Perfect Pearls and Pigments. They don't list paint making as one of the applications of this particular type of powder, so I have no idea if it's going to work, but we'll see. We're also going to need like a few different materials, so plastic pipettes, plastic palette knives. As you might have noticed, we're kind of doing the budget tour here, because if I would have bought a set of metal palette knives, it would have set me back like £15. I've bought the plastic ones. I'm hoping that's not going to make too much of a difference. We'll see. Paint pans. This is what you're going to actually put the paint in. A glass block. I got an acrylic block. This is to actually grind the paint up on. It would have just been really expensive for me to get a glass block and it would have taken ages to arrive, but yeah, acrylic will have to do. The next thing you need is a muller, the tool that you use to grind the pigment down into the binder. Glass mullers are so expensive. The cheapest I could find them online for was £35. £35, and I'm sure that they are worth the money if you are a paint maker. I have no idea if I'm going to enjoy this, so I was like, there's no way that I'm spending £35 on this. And this was the best thing that I could find to do the job. It's just the top of like a cocktail shaker, but what you need is something that kind of has a flat top. I'm hoping that this should do the job. You're also going to need a mask. Basically, even if you get non-toxic pigments, because they are ground up so small, you don't want to be inhaling them anyway, so it's good to wear a mask when you're grinding them up. Measuring spoons. These are just ones that I'm going to use specifically for this process and any other crafty stuff that I have to measure in the future. Okay, I'm really excited. Let's do this. So first of all, I'm going to be making the binder. The first thing we need is gum arabic solution. So I'm going to be following a recipe, I don't know if you call it that I found on Jackson's Art Supplies, the blog. From what I've read, you kind of have to use a bit of trial and error to kind of get the recipe that you like perfectly, but hopefully this is a good starting point. Okay, so we're going to start with 30 milliliters of this gum arabic solution. Then we'll also need a half teaspoon of glycerin and honey each. So something I should mention actually is I managed to get all of the ingredients and the materials for this for about £45 to £50. It's not a cheap hobby, even if you want to do it cheaply. Well, the cheap version like I have. So then another half teaspoon of honey. And then just 1 drop of the clove oil. So then obviously you need to kind of mix this up. Okay, so now is the part where we need to get the pigments involved, which is very exciting. So I'm going to pop on this this mask just to make sure that I'm not breathing in any of the particles. Oh. So I'm going to do the recipe that I said that I'm following is 1 tablespoon to 5 milliliters of the binder, 1 tablespoon of pigment to 5 milliliters of the binder, sorry. So I'm just going to do this one first. So we're just going to pop it down here on the acrylic block. Nice. Okay, so we've got our pigment, which is looking lovely in the sun. That's about 3 milliliters. And just pop it on top here. So I need about another 2. And the first step before we do any mulling is just to try and combine the binder with the paint. Oh, wow, and you can really start to see actually the blue coming out. I'm going to make an executive decision here and put in some more binder. So I've got another about 1.5 millilitres of binder. You kind of, from what I read, have to adjust the ratio because depending on the pigment that you use, well, that will depend on how much like liquid it will actually take in. I think even now we'll need a little bit more. So we've got about 7.5 millilitres of pigment in here. See, I still think that that's a little bit too pasty. Alright guys, so done a little bit more research, and I've seen in other places that actually some people use a 1-to-1 binder to pigment ratio. We used 1 tablespoon of pigment and we've only used about half of that in binder. I'm going to keep on adding binder and just see what happens. That was another 3 millilitres I think, and actually already that is looking way better. I'm not really sure if you need a metal spatula. What they're called. I've had a mind blank. Now comes the more labour intensive part, because you're going to need to mull it next. And I have seen that you might have to mull this for like over an hour. You can see here that there are bits of pigment in the paint that make it a bit grainy, and the aim is to get that out and get it as smooth as possible. Hopefully this will work. I would recommend as well, if you're going to be doing this yourself, watch quite a few different videos, because I've noticed that just after starting that looked a little bit too sort of thick and gloopy compared to what I've seen in the past. So I'm going to add yet more binder, just another like milliliter. Bit of an update. I have been mulling for about 25 minutes. I'm having some difficulty sort of deciding if it's ready or not, because if I kind of spread it out, it looks a little bit grainy at first, and then it looks like actually if you just leave it for a second that most of those grains are actually like air bubbles. So in the end I ended up adding actually about 15 millilitres of the binder, so it did end up being about a 1-to-1 ratio. I think I'm at a stage where I'm pretty happy with it now, so we'll just see how it turns out. We're going to do a quick test now just to see if it's ready. So I've got this little scrap bit of watercolour paper and a wet paintbrush, and I'm just going to take a little bit of the paint here and just paint a little bit on here. So there are a few different tests that I've seen that you can do to determine like whether or not a paint is ready. So the first test is, well, obviously you kind of like see if it's grainy or not. It doesn't look too bad, but I'm gonna wait for it to dry. Yeah, it looks pretty good, I think. Second test is I'm gonna wait for it to dry and then rub my finger on it, and if any of the pigment gets picked up, I think that means that there's not enough binder, so I'll need to add a little bit more binder to get it to combine a little bit better. Alright, so this seems to have dried. I'm just gonna rub on there, and it looks pretty clean. So I'm pretty happy with that actually. So the next step is the fun part, is actually getting it into the pans. You actually need to do several fillings of the pans, because what happens is the water evaporates from the paint and it ends up shrinking in the pans. So you can't just fill it all at once, because then once it dries it won't be full. But I'm just going to try and do 3, maybe 4 layers. We'll do the first layer today and then do the next when it dries, whenever that may be. Gosh, this is something that looked way easier in all the tutorials. Okay, well, that was a bit of a fail. So yeah, that's all around the sides. Okay, that was a bit better. Okay, so I'm just probably filling them like nearly to the top. Hey guys, welcome back. As you can see here, things have happened. These ones have been drying for about 10 days now, And very quickly I noticed that they weren't really drying in the way that I was expecting them to. So I was expecting them to be quite solid, not chalky, but very dry. And actually, as you can kind of see here, it's dry, it's not wet, but it's kind of gloopy almost. And I think the reason behind this might be because I've put a bit too much honey in my binder. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think some watercolours are kind of a bit more gloopy and a bit more pasty anyway. It's not exactly what I wanted, but for a first attempt, I think they've gone pretty well. The purple one that I've done, I actually put less binder in to begin with. It looks a bit drier on top. The texture also is, it's still a little bit gloopy, but it's less so. And it dried a lot quicker as well. These ones here, the kind of greenish, bluish gold ones, kind of similar to the pink one. This has kind of gone a little bit tacky, and it's not really the texture I was expecting. For the pink ones, it was about a 1:1 pigment to binder ratio. For the green/blue, it was a little bit more binder, which is probably why they're not quite as dry and really sticky. And for these ones, I think, oh God. Remarkably, that did not go over my top. Oh, I spoke too soon. Oh no. Anyway, for this paint, it was slightly more pigment than binder. I can't remember exactly how much, but I'll put the amount here when I find it. This is the second batch that I did, so about a week ago, with the purple pigments. I've kept this in this little like Tupperware box, and I need to kind of remix this because some of the pigments sort of separated a little bit, but it has kept the same like liquidy consistency even after a week, and this hasn't been stored in the fridge. What I'm going to do now is just do the second layer for these purpley pans. I think I'm gonna have to do a third layer for these ones. This, as I said before, these ones have taken 3 layers, still not dry. But at least I know that it will last okay in this Tupperware. There's just like, it's just such a huge Tupperware for such a tiny amount of paint. Okay guys, it is about 1,000 degrees centigrade today. It certainly feels that way anyway. And I have just turned off my fan so that I could film this video, so that's how committed I am to these watercolours. So it's been 2 weeks since I started this process. I'm pretty much there with the first two colours that I did. So really I think this could really do with another layer, but to be honest, I think I've run out of pigment for this one. So I'm just not going to. It's fine. I think I've been putting too much binder in both of these. You can see it's kind of squidgy a little bit. In fact, there's this one that I've labelled Kate's because I have just absolutely completely destroyed it to bits. But if you kind of press it, it's almost like popping a spot. It's gross. I really swore. It's absolutely gross. This consistency of watercolour is like perfectly fine to use, and actually like I have been experimenting with these ones that are already set, and I really enjoy using the slightly softer watercolours because it's way easier to re-wet. However, I'm just thinking in terms of like if I want to send these to anybody, it's gonna make things a little bit more difficult because it might be the case that some of the paint will sort of liquefy a little bit and stick to the wrapping paper, which I obviously want to avoid. So far, the most solid ones I've had have been these ones with like the smaller ratio of binder to pigment, but it's still not perfect. I don't know, I'm not gonna do it in this video because it's already getting quite long, but I'm gonna basically do a very scientific experiment to see exactly what can make my watercolours a little bit more solid. But for now I'm just doing the final layer of this sort of purpley, I think it's actually called fuchsia blue. I'm just doing it's called like the pillow top on top of the pans. No! The amount of times that I've done stuff like that, honestly, over the past couple of weeks. Oh no. So that is pretty much done, I think. I'm pretty pleased with those. I think this one in particular looks quite shiny and nice, but I just wanted to show you some examples of what these paints actually look like when they're painted. This one is the first one that we made, which is a kind of pinky blue. They re-wet really easily, which is nice, and I feel like I don't really get that as much with some of the other watercolours that I have that are more solid. So that's definitely a plus. They are actually really nice to paint with. Then we've got the one that I've absolutely destroyed. This one is kind of a greenish colour. Well, it looks like a green in the pan, but actually when you re-wet it, it comes out blue, which is magical. And then we've got the final one, the purpley. I'm just going to take a little bit from this Tupperware, so you can kind of see some of the colour transition there. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how all three of these paints have gone. I would and have actually already used them in quite a lot of my pieces, which is obviously a good sign. Like if I wouldn't use them myself, then we know that there's a problem there. I haven't actually tried these on black card yet, so we'll see. That's interesting. I feel like this one looks more green on black paper. Maybe the colour of the sparkles kind of shows up a bit more on the black paper here. How interesting! I've never seen... Usually I feel like metallic paints show up better on black paper, but it seems to be the case that just the metallic-y part of this one, these ones rather, show up better on the black paper, whereas on the white paper you see the kind of underlying colour. They are so different on black paper, that's crazy. So there you go. That's the second or the third lot of pans refilled for the final time. Tested them on both black and white card. Really interesting, the results actually. I really didn't expect that, so that's very, very exciting. I am going to film a final clip when these have dried and just show you guys what they look like. So I'll check back in there. Alright guys, so it has been probably about 2 months since I started this process. I've not only made the 3 colours that you've seen me make in these videos, I've now made quite a few. I've gotten a little bit obsessed. I just wanted to show you guys how the final paints turned out for the ones that I made in this video. So we've got, first of all, the one that had an equal ratio of binder to pigment in it. It's actually fairly solid. It's still squidgy. You can see it leaves an indent in there if I press it. It's not the worst one that I've made. Then the second one that I made was the one that looks green in the pan but actually comes out as blue/gold. This was the one that had a slightly higher binder to pigment ratio. It looks solid, but it's also got that liquidy consistency where it will sort of melt back into the pan even if you press it and kind of mess it up. So you can kind of see here there's some texture on here from when I've sort of squidged it around. It still has that very gluey, tacky and slime-like consistency really, but it doesn't really come off on my finger that much, you can see. And then finally we have the last one that I made, which had the smaller binder to pigment ratio. This is the purple one, or the fuchsia blue one, and this is a lot less squidgy than both of the first two. Although it still has a little bit of, still not completely solid. I have been filming a video where I've been experimenting with different binder formulas just to see what can make it a little bit more solid while still keeping the nice consistency that I've made so far. So if you've enjoyed watching this video and you found it useful, then make sure to subscribe because I will be uploading that video very, very soon, and probably, to be honest, lots more watercolour paint videos to come. So now that I've spent basically 2 months of my life making all of these paints that I can't even use all of myself, you might be thinking, what am I going to do with them? Well, that is where obviously the giveaway comes in. So I'm going to be giving these away in two ways. First of all, I'm going to be doing more of the traditional giveaway on my Instagram account, so go follow me there if you don't already. I'm going to be giving away one of each of the colours that you've seen me make in this video. The second thing I'm going to be doing is giving them away as free gifts on my Etsy store. So if you spend more than £5, you just need to put in this code here and I will send you one of the three colours or one of the paints that I've made as a free gift. One thing that I do want to mention is that obviously I only have a limited number of these paints, so I can't guarantee that even if you do buy on Etsy, even if you use the free paint code, I cannot guarantee that you will get one because it is while stocks last. That's about it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. As always, remember to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!